Welcome to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we remember significant tragedies and triumphs in Black history. In Alabama, we sit down with a survivor of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing 60 years later. And in Delaware, we'll learn about little-known African-American fashion designer Ann Lowe, now finally being recognized for her work. But first, we look back on a truly awful moment in civil rights history. Nearly 70 years after Emmett Till's death, President Biden designated 3 national monuments to recognize the teen's brutal killing, which helped fuel the civil rights movement. Elise Preston visits the Mississippi town where the murder occurred and speaks with Till's cousin, who was with him that day. A warning, this report includes some disturbing images.
A heavy stillness hangs over the banks of this Mississippi River.
The landscape holds memory of one of the most tragic chapters in American history.
This is the muddy backwoods Tallahatchie River, where a weighted body was found.
Nearly 70 years ago, Emmett Till's blistered and bruised body was dumped and discovered here.
We want as many Americans and international visitors to come here and to understand that this was a catalytic moment.
Till's cousin, Reverend Wheeler Parker, was with Till that fateful summer when the 14-year-old was abducted, brutally tortured, and killed by Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam.
The thing that bothered me most then and now is the way they portrayed Emmett. Some people have their goal to say he must have done something. That's what we were up against.
Parker spoke with us at the historic Roberts Temple in Chicago, the last place he saw his beloved cousin, unrecognizable, lying in an open casket. A pointed decision made by Till's mother, Mamie Till Mobley, to show the world what racial hatred did to her son.
She was so fed up and so angry. She just said, let them see what I say.
The family received long overdue recognition from the White House, the church, along with this Mississippi River site and courthouse, where an all-white male jury let Till's murderers walk free, are all part of a new national monument honoring Till and his mother. Brent Legg sees today's move as an important first step in protecting an additional 5,000 Black historic sites.
Preservation gives us the opportunity to heal.
What does it mean to have that value placed on pain that your family endured?
It speaks volumes, because unless we did something about it, we're subject to repeat it again.
We continue honoring our country's past and present in South Carolina. Indigo, what was once one of the South's most profitable crops, is making a comeback. Mark Strassman meets the next generation of farmers, reclaiming the crop in honor of enslaved people who tended it generations ago.
Sheena Myers makes her Indigo soap, knowing nothing can scrub away South Carolina's past.
There's a whole history behind what I'm doing.
It's deep.
Yeah, it's real deep.
Indigo dye's beautiful color comes shrubbed and shrouded by an ugly history. In the mid-1700s, wealthy South Carolina planters called it blue gold, a labor-intensive cash crop produced by the sweat of enslaved people. For Myers, it's personal.
Very personal.
But to you, it's not just anybody's history.
Right.
This is
It's my family history.
Among those enslaved Indigo workers, her great-great-grandmother.
Because they were humiliated, now I'm being honored. And me being honored is like I'm honoring them as well. I don't think they would ever have thought in a million years that they would have a descendant creating things like this.
Her company, Genotype, sells indigo-based skincare and medicinal products for psoriasis, peptic ulcers, bronchitis. Annual sales top $1 million.
immerse it.
You immerse it down in.
Down the road, Precious Jennings grows indigo to process its natural dye powder. Think of it as farm to fabric, digging for healing in the dirt of a former plantation.
Every day I come onto this land, I honor and think about and give gratitude to the people that were here and enslaved on this land.
Myers wants to pass her business and family history to her 3 sons.
If they keep this business alive, it won't disappear.
Keep growing the indigo. The history stays alive.
It will continue. It will continue.
Growing a new indigo legacy, rich in humility.
Up next, a survivor of the 1963 Birmingham church bombing recalls that fateful day. Her story is next. Now we commemorate another of the darkest days from the civil rights era. It's been 60 years since the 16th Street Baptist church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama. Members of the Ku Klux Klan planted a bomb that took the lives of 4 young girls. Elise Preston reflects with the surviving 5th little girl on the tragedy and how it forever changed her life and the lives of others.
When Sarah Collins Rudolph speaks of her sister Addie Mae, the tragedy of losing a young life is compounded by injustice.
What do you miss most about your sister?
I just miss her about being with her. We would laugh and have a lot of fun together.
The Collins sisters lived in one of the most segregated and racially violent American cities, Birmingham, Alabama, where Governor George Wallace vowed in 1963 that black citizens would never be treated with dignity.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Still, the Collins sisters found simple joys.
And we was having a good time walking, and when we got to church that morning, we went down into the basement to freshen up.
Moments later, her life forever changed, and the lives of Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, and her sister, Addie Mae Collins, tragically ended.
Addie was standing by the couch. Boom! And all I could do was say, Jesus, Addie, 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 but she didn't answer. Those girls didn't get a chance to live their life. They was killed just because they was black.
Planted by members of the KKK, the dynamite killed the 4 girls and gouged a crater in the basement of the church, a bedrock for black Birmingham.
A place that's supposed to be safe, a place that's supposed to be a sanctuary, became a place of homegrown terrorism.
Pastor Arthur Price Jr. leads the church today, while Theodore Debro chairs the Board of Trustees.
Here we are out protesting peacefully. We are nonviolent, but yet here you come with violence and kill our children. How dare you?
That's a special kind of evil, to set it off at that particular time. So they meant to do damage on that particular Sunday.
A piece of glass in my eye.
This photo, taken days after the attack, shows Collins Rudolph bandaged in a hospital bed. She lost an eye.
12 years old, going to church to learn about God.
Collins Rudolph says she struggled for 6 decades.
I would think that the Alabama state would compensate me for what I went through with. They haven't given me anything for my injury. I figured they owed me in restitution when people were promoting hate during that time.
In a 2020 letter, Governor Kay Ivey offered an apology, stating racist segregationist rhetoric used by some of our leaders was wrong. Ivey's office told Collins' lawyer that the state legislature would be the correct body to appeal for restitution, but attempts to advance her claim there quickly faltered.
It was denied, so I always wondered why was I denied.
CBS News contacted the governor's office several times to understand why Collins' claims have been denied, but our attempts went unanswered.
This would be some of the remnants from the stained glass window that when it was bombed.
16th Street Baptist still welcomes tens of thousands of visitors a year.
Still tell it just as I'm feeling it 60 years ago. It becomes overwhelming at times because I still feel it.
We are being agents of change, which we believe the 4 little girls were, because of what happened to them. It helped change the world that we live in today.
A world where 60 years later, the 5th little girl, at age 72, is still waiting for justice.
We honor the 4 little girls lost that day: Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, Addie Mae Collins, and Carol Robertson. Continuing now with another historic moment from the same era when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his historic I Have a Dream speech on the National Mall. Nicole Killian gets a rare look at the actual rough draft of his famous speech to see how MLK brought his written words to life.
I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
That was the clarion call which galvanized the nation in 1963 and became etched in modern memory as the preeminent vision for racial justice.
A speech like no other today, which moved the crowd to standing ovation.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech to over 200,000 attendees and audiences nationwide who tuned in to the televised event. But that iconic line and namesake for the speech was not the original plan. An earlier draft was titled Normalcy, Never Again.
What's very distinct from the earlier draft and what we actually see as I Have a Dream is it does not contain that final section with the dream peroration.
Dr. Vicki Crawford is the director of the Morehouse College Martin Luther King Jr. collection, which is housed at the Robert Woodruff Library.
So why don't you think it was in this draft?
We know that Dr. King at the March on Washington had a prepared text. And then, of course, the audience was giving him such a great call and response that I guess he felt energized, and we understand that Mahalia Jackson, the gospel singer, was there on the stage, and she said, well, tell him about the dream. And so he went off text, and the speech was extemporaneous after that.
Fast forward 60 years, and preparations are being made for people to once again gather in March.
We got to go back to the drawing board. And that's why we say this is not a commemoration, this is a celebration. It is a rededication.
Martin Luther King III reflects on his father's legacy and the work that remains.
Dad's last book was written in '67, was Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? We are living in chaos, but we must build community if we as a society are to survive, and particularly if we're talking about a democracy surviving.
Ahead, a museum exhibit celebrates a little-known black fashion designer finally getting her due. This is Eye on America. We close our show spotlighting what some call an often overlooked figure in fashion history. Ann Lowe was a pioneering black designer who was referred to as society's best-kept secret. She designed and hand-sewed the wedding dress that helped launch Jackie Kennedy as a style icon. I visited the new exhibit that's celebrating the woman whose style had a hand in shaping 20th century elegance.
The young senator poses for the first time with his wife.
It was a society page sensation. Every detail of Jacqueline Kennedy's wedding mentioned, save the name of her designer. And so Ann Lowe lost her moment in 1953.
Wow, that is quite the portrait.
She's reclaiming it now.
She is what this exhibit is about, and we needed to put her first, and then the gowns.
Lowe's designs are the featured attraction at the Winterthur Museum.
The sheer magnitude of this collection astounds me.
Alexandra Deutsch is its co-curator.
I think it's a testament to the range of what Lowe designed. I mean, you're looking in this case from the 1920s into the 1960s. This is one designer.
The Wilmington, Delaware estate was once home to the DuPont family, some of whom were Lowe's clients, along with the heir to a cereal fortune, Marjorie Meriwether Post.
So much of her story is marked by her ambition and her determination.
FIT fashion historian Elizabeth Way researched Lowe for nearly a decade.
When you think of Ann Lowe in the history of America, define what she means.
Ann Lowe absolutely helped shape American fashion culture. She made these dresses that were photographed, that were looked at, that were coveted, that were copied. She's always right in line with what's happening in fashion. But for all these looks, we see this elegance, we see this embellishment style that is extravagant but not excessive. And also you see her enormous skill. All of these hand details. She would bead, she would applique. Her skill set was immense.
Born in segregated Montgomery, Alabama,
she learned from her grandmother and her mother, who were both professional dressmakers, and she worked since she was 6 years old.
She moved to Florida, set up her own atelier in Tampa, and in 1928 headed to New York for design school.
Even though she was really well respected and beloved among Tampa society, she wanted something bigger.
For 2 more decades, she created gowns for balls, concerts, even the 1946 Oscars. Olivia de Havilland accepted her award in an Ann Lowe design. Too delicate to move from its home at the JFK Library, Jackie's original bridal gown had to be replicated for this exhibit.
I looked at all the work that's going to be in the dress, and I just knew that I needed student help.
University of Delaware professor Katya Rolls was tapped for the honor, and her summer fashion scholars were floored.
Well, what did you guys learn?
Well, I learned that hand sewing is really hard and very tedious. It wasn't until you're in the moment of working where you can feel her dedication.
Oh, wow. Right down to the accent of her blue-bowed petticoat.
We primarily worked on the rosettes, which may not sound like too much, but it was at least 50 hours of work.
Not quite the time Lowe originally put into it. Turns out 10 days before the wedding, Kennedy's dress and 10 of her 15 bridesmaids were destroyed in a flood in Lowe's dress shop.
Just to think of her resolve to do it once and have to do it again is really testament to who she was.
Known for her own signature style, all-black classic shifts with hat, Lowe's great-granddaughter says distinction was her mantra.
She would say, and even if you go out to empty the garbage, you don't ever set foot out the door without dressing to the nines.
Wow. We reunited Linda Dixon with Charmin Petty.
Trimmings.
Petty's parents, Benjamin and Ione Stoddard, owned the Madison Avenue store that featured Lowe's designs.
My mom had saved all of these. In 1962, they started with Miss Lowe. She had been at Saks. She had her own shop right down the street on Madison.
And helped her get back on her feet.
At that point in time, she was having a lot of health issues. She was in her middle 60s. She had very bad...
She had glaucoma and
She had glaucoma, and she couldn't sketch anymore. She really needed someone to back her, to promote her, and to help her get orders. So my mother was very good at that.
In the December issue of Saturday...
So good, she landed a spread in the Saturday Evening Post.
Society's best-kept secret. Would you give her a nice welcome, please, Miss?
And a network TV interview on The Mike Douglas Show.
The color, Ann, is...
Plum satin.
Plum satin.
And the jewels, that's hand beaded.
That brought in new business, including a rather highbrow wedding in Washington, D.C. for the daughter of Dr. Robert Mance.
My father-in-law was always into fashion and had exquisite taste in clothes.
Diane Mance, Betty Wooden, and Sybil Gant were all Elizabeth's bridesmaids.
What did it fit like?
It fit perfectly. Mine fit like a glove. I didn't have to do anything. I just put it on and walked out the door.
The detail. Oh, that's done by hand.
Quite the compliment from Betty Wooden, considering her grandmother was a professional seamstress.
I mean, that detail was phenomenal. It was unbelievable.
What was your first impression?
I was very impressed. Madison Avenue in the 60s, very impressed.
Black woman.
Yes.
Owns her own business.
That's correct. And a lovely person.
Lowe died in 1981, but for historian Elizabeth Way, her legacy lives on through the designers that come behind her.
This is Amsal. She was really known for creating the modern wedding dress, that beautiful streamlined dress that is still so influential today.
B. Michael.
B. Michael is focusing on couture just the way Ann Lowe did.
He even has her name.
He designed this especially for Dawn Davis to wear to the Met Gala.
How much is this re-emergence really helping this next generation of Black designers?
I think it's really important to inspire people to know that you're not the first, that you come from this very rich legacy that was very impactful on American history and American fashion culture.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.